Hello, everyone, and welcome. See, people are rolling in, but we're really excited to have you this morning. Hopefully, you are staying warm as we're really excited today. So, just going to give it a few more seconds as anyone else hovers in. But otherwise, my name is Zach, and I am the strategy manager for higher education innovation with Michigan College Access Network. So I will be our host today as we're joined by the fantastic Jenny Chandler. So just give it a few more seconds. A few housekeeping things, and I'll repeat this again. The best way to get a hold of us is going to be through the chat. There should also be a Q&A enabled as well. I would say the chat's going to still be the easiest just to send anything through um, on there. Anyway, knowing that we have a lot of content to cover and want to make sure that we're able to get through all of your questions, ideas, and any concerns on this important topic. So I'm going to get started on this beginning part since this will repeat at the end for any stragglers on here. But welcome. You are hopefully in the right place as we're part of our Sallie Mae series, talking through different higher education topics. And today, the topic is how America completes. For anyone that is looking for a sketch credit, just want to make sure that you have all of the information you need, or if you have a friend that maybe couldn't attend for whatever reason. If you did not request a sketch when you registered, but are still attending this session, please email a sketch at micollegeaccess.org. This will also be in the recording and repeated at the end. And please send your name, the name of this webinar, which is How America Completes College, and your PIC number. And this webinar is good for up to one sketch on there. If after the 30-day mark you still don't see the sketch on your account, please email that same sketch at micollegeaccess.org email, and our staff that monitors that address will make sure to get you that credit. There is also a recording option available in order to receive the sketch. So if you're watching this webinar as a recording, you may complete the quiz that's listed on the website in order to earn your sketch. There will be a password shared at the end of this webinar that will allow you to access that quiz in order to receive the sketch. Those watching as a recording will be sure to get that sketch as well. If you are watching live, as in you are here in this room and able to attend the full session, you do not need to take this quiz. This is only for the folks that were not able to join us live. But otherwise, let's get started with the content while you're all here nice and early. So our presenter is Jenny Chandler, who is the Director of Relationship Management at Sallie Mae. And we're excited to have her with us today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Jenny will take it away.
I'm really excited to be here this morning. So I will go off video so I'll share my full screen. I think you might need to give me access to share. Oh, here. Okay. No, it just popped up. Hopefully you can all see my screen. But we're going to talk today about how America completes college. The journey to college, it feels like a marathon for so many people, and I know it did for myself. There's the search for the right schools, the stress of applications, the emotions or in rejections, and the acceptances, and just the emotional roller coaster that takes you through, the discovery of future careers, and the challenge of figuring out how to pay. All this doesn't have to be done on the first day, but that it's truly just the beginning. Navigating the path to graduation is equally, if not more important. With roughly 62% of undergraduate students walking the stage at the commencement ceremony, it's clear that many things can get in the way of college completion. Consider the pre-college experience through the lens of an on-track and at-risk students, as well as non-completers, reveals opportunities to help each student graduate. And that's what we'll talk about today. Here's a brief agenda. We'll start by covering the details of Sallie Mae's new How America Completes College Research study. And this study segments students into those who are on track and those who are at risk of not graduating. We'll talk about how students in these segments experience college and discuss reasons students are considering leaving. We'll finish up by considering non-completers, a separate group of young adults, to provide additional content for reasons that they may leave college and what can be done to possibly bring them back. Let's start with the research details. The study included 1,029 current students ages 18 to 30 who enrolled in a 2 or a 4-year program. Supplementing this main example are 427 non-completers. These are young adults under the age of 30 who started at a 2 or 4-year program but did not complete their degree. We partner with Ipsos to conduct our public research studies, and they ensure that the data we share is weighted across section of key demographic variables that make it representative of the key segments. So let's go ahead and dive in. Current students on track or at risk. In this portion of the presentation, we'll talk about our learnings from the currently enrolled students and start by understanding what's on track and what's at risk. To place students in the category of the at risk and on track, we simply asked whether school or have at risk of dismissal. For those we shared that they have considered leaving school, we asked how seriously they thought about it. And so we defined 3 categories. On track, these are the students who have not considered leaving school, students who considered leaving school but not seriously, and finally those at risk. These students are considered leaving school seriously or have been at risk of dismissal. For the purposes of this conversation, we'll focus on the 2 segments at the rails. Look who's at risk and those who are on track. In this data, the middle segment does exactly what you would expect it to do. The responses from students who have considered leaving school but not seriously fall in the middle between our 2 main segments. So what's the proportion of students that are on track or at risk? Majority of students, 64%, say they are on track to complete their education, having never considered leaving school, which that statistics is fairly strong. This means that the balance, 36%, have considered leaving school or at risk of dismissal at some point in their education journey. 12% of the enrolled students have considered leaving college, but not seriously, and 24% are at risk. That is, they have seriously considered leaving school or have been at risk of dismissal. Said another way, 1 in 4 current students are at risk of not completing their program. 1 in 4. Throughout today's session, we'll largely focus on the 2 groups, those that are on track and those that are at risk. So we can talk about what makes these groups similar or different, and what barriers exist in the way of our at-risk students. Looking at this, there are important differences between students who are on track and students who are at risk. One of the findings that really startled me when working on this research is that 41% of the first generation students included in the study told us they seriously considered leaving college. 4 in 10. who are first in their families to go to college are at risk for not finishing. In fact, first generation students are more than twice as likely to be at risk of non completion as students from college graduated families. 31% of Hispanic and Black students, 33% of students who grew up in lower income households also have seriously considered leaving school or are at risk of dismissal, which represents a significantly higher proportion compared to their counterparts who are white and students who grew up in the middle or higher income households. There are additional behavior differences as well. Here are the percentages describe the at-risk and on-track populations. We see that at-risk students are more likely than those who are on track to be enrolled in a two-year school. More than a third of the students who are at risk are at a two-year school compared to just 18% among students who are on track. Another significant difference is that at-risk students are more likely to work off campus while being enrolled and work more hours. We found that more than half of our students who are at risk, 57%, work off campus, compared to 38% of students who are on track. And that more than half of the at-risk students who are employed work more than 20 hours a week compared to 25% of employed on-track students. This means that at-risk students are juggling more, have more on their plate, potentially finding the balance between school, work, and life much more challenging. Another thing that separates those who are on track from those who are at risk in their stated commitment to the college path overall, we found that most students who are on track, which is 73%, say they have always known they will pursue higher education. While more than half of the students who are at risk, 56%, don't fall into this category. Additionally, 81% of students who are on track said they were very committed to college before they enrolled, while only 44% of at-risk students reported the same. So we see that students who are on track have their sights set on college early on and committed to it, while students who have seriously considered leaving or have been at risk of dismissal made the decision to pursue education after high school later and weren't as committed to the path in the first place. We had similar findings last year when How America Completes College report focused on comparing pre and in college experience of young adults who graduated from the program and those who left without their degree, or what we call the non-completers. Completers were significantly more likely to exhibit early signs of commitment to college paths than the non-completers. So let's look, why are unenrolled students at risk of not finishing their program? Why are they considering college? And I think this is something important for us to take a look at. The most frequently mentioned primary reason for considering leaving school, among the at-risk students is financial challenges, which I know it did not surprise me that it was financial challenges. 30% of at-risk students mention such challenges. This includes the cost overall mentioned by 16% of at-risk students, a change that financial situation 8%, and the students having a difficult time balancing needing to work and going to school about 6%, or loss of scholarship mentioned by 1% of the students. Following financial challenges, 24% of at-risk students shared that a change in motivation or life change has contributed to them considering leaving college. Under this umbrella, loss of motivation truly accounts for the bulk of responses, 14%, with 4% reporting a life change, such as getting married, divorced, or having a child, to name a few. 4% simply say that it's worth it to continue or that they're gaining valuable skills. And finally, 2% are just unsure of what career path or major to choose. Adding all these up, we get to the idea of a changing motivation or focus, which is the number two contributing reason for students being at risk of dropping out. Mental health challenges round out the top three reasons for considering leaving schools. Beyond these three reasons, 1 in 10 or fewer of at risk students mention academic challenges, such as poor academic performance or courses being too difficult, or issues with the school, which includes challenges with communicating to the school, commuting to the school. And finally, a handful of mentioned physical health issues that may prevent them from continuing their education. So the top challenges that stand in the way of students graduating are related to finances, motivation, and mental health. Let's dig into these factors in a little bit more detail, starting with the finances. Even before entering college, few at risk students reported feeling prepared to cover the cost of college, which is about 30%, or confident about their family's ability to pay 35%. Paying for college can be a daunting task for many families, particularly those who have a limited understanding of the process and a few resources. Remember that students at risk are more likely to be first generation students or have grown up in lower income households, to name a few. Proactive planning can be the key to helping families access their situation and make thoughtful decisions about paying for college that work for today and for the future. 25% of the at risk students reported they have a plan to pay for all years of school before they enrolled, compared with the 46% of on track students. Now, as an aside, I should know that this level of planning is low, even among students who are on track to completion. In addition to being almost twice as likely to have created a plan to pay for all 4 years of school before enrolling, and on track students were also more likely to discuss a range of college related topics with their families than students who are at risk. At a high risk level, nearly all on track students, 90%, discussed any of the topics measured in our research versus 70%, 76% of at risk students. Financial topics, including scholarships, how much college was going to cost, and who would pay for college, were among the more frequently discussed, but half or fewer at risk students reported having these conversations. And those conversations really deemed to be extremely important. Perhaps it's not surprising, more than half, 56% of students who are at risk, are first in their family to go to college. From our other research, we know that first generation students require additional support and guidance when it comes to planning for college. Since many of them aren't growing up with this cultural capital at home, so the level of planning actions and conversations are just not where those are in college experienced households. And so many students are facing real difficulties in the meeting of the cost of college. We found roughly half of students who are at risk of non completion say it's difficult to cover the cost of college. An additional 50% said it's difficult for them to cover the college expenses such as textbook, living costs, food, and more. So I know there's so much more to the cost of college than what the actual sticker price is. And that's where sometimes it gets hard. This compares to 21% and 26% of on track students reporting this level of difficulty in covering the cost of college. To add insult to injury, many students don't feel supported by their school when it comes to finances. 42% of at risk students and 31% of on track students rated the financial support from their college as fair or poor. This support would include information about how to pay, advice about the options that would work best for the family, providing scholarships, and more. Notice that the separation between how these two groups rate the support they receive from their school isn't as far off as we have seen in other metrics. So that's a telling sign that we should do more for students across the board when it comes to supporting them and paying for college. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into the issue with motivation and the changes focusing students who are at risk. One of the first places where my mind goes when we speak about motivation and the ability to preserve through college is a clarity of the outcome of this education, which more and more means career and increased earnings potential. On track students were more likely to come into college with a higher degree of clarity, found that their career aspirations, which likely contributes to their continued motivation and focus on the college path. More than 7 in 10 on track students, 73%, started college with an idea for the exact career major they wanted to pursue, or an understanding of the general field they wanted to work in after graduation, compared with 56% of at risk students. Moreover, 30% of at risk versus 18% of on track students indicated their interest changed after they enrolled. The vast majority of both on track and at risk, 96% and 91%, students agree college is an investment in their future. That's one reason they're in college. However, students who are on track are more likely than those who are at risk believe in the connection between a college education and the opportunity or earning potential. For example, 93% of on track students agree a college degree opens up opportunities that went otherwise versus 70% of at-risk students. More than that, 88% of on-track students believe attending college will help them obtain a degree that will be compared to 78% of at-risk students. Of course, still a majority, but not as strong as among those who are on track. And finally, 87% of on track students agree higher education will lead to better jobs versus 75% of the at risk students. Students often discover their path once already in college. In more than 1/4 of both on track and at risk students, the college course that were very useful in helping find a career direction or establish a majority they're interested in. However, 1/4 of at-risk students said their classes they took thus far weren't useful at all in helping them find this direction. That compares to just 9% of on-track students who reported the same. Further, just half of the at-risk students rated the resources available to help them pick a major or career direction at a school as excellent or good. 70% of on-track students rated those reasons highly. Of course, career clarity is not the only factor in the equation of motivation. However, our research last year, which included non-completers, pointed to very similar findings. Non-completers, just like students of the at-risk non-completion, started college not as committed to this path, and many without a clear vision of how higher education will help them accomplish this goal. So to me, this connection between career orientation and motivation to complete a degree is clear. Finally, let's talk about the third top factor for considering leaving school, and that's mental health. Let me state that I think it's become a universal truth these days. Mental health is an enormously important issue impacting young people today. I was somewhat surprised by the students in our study rated their mental health. Just half, 50% of currently enrolled students rated their mental health as excellent or good, just half. 35 rated it as fair, and 15% said their mental health was poor or very poor. And this is a crisis in itself. What's scarier is there is a correlation between the mental health and the self-assessment having seriously considered leaving school. 31% of at-risk students rated their mental health as excellent or even good compared with 61% of the on-track students, a 30-point difference between those two groups of students. When asked how easy or difficult they have found some of the social aspects of college life, at-risk students were less likely to report an easy experience. A third or fewer of at-risk students shared in it's easy for them to make friends, 34%, stay healthy, 33%, or prioritize their mental health, 22%. While on-track students reported significantly more ease among all measures. It's clear that students who are on track can use some help with staying healthy, physically and mentally at school. Just half, about 48% of on track students find it easy to stay healthy, and just 35% of those who are on track say it's easy to prioritize mental health. Interesting enough, a bit over half of the students on track or at risk rated the mental health resources or counseling services available to them on campus positively, which means the balance, about 4 and 10, did not. Thus far, we focused on the experiences of currently enrolled undergraduate students. And, we considered those through the lens of, being on track or at risk of non-completion. We talked about how these two groups are similar and different, and we dove deeper to understand the top reasons students who are at risk are considered leaving the college path. So these are students evaluating their current experiences. What about actual non-completers? How how is what we just talked about compared to the outcomes and considerations of young adults who did not make the decision to leave school at some point? What drove them to stay at this step? And how does this align with our at-risk considerations? Let's take a quick look. So here we're looking at non-completers and the reasons they gave for leaving their program before entering a degree. The purple bars are what I call contributing factors, which means non-completers could select more than one contributing reason they left school. And the light blue represents the primary reasons non-completers actually left school. As you can see, the top factors line up in order and are very similar to what we were just discussing with regard to at-risk students. When it comes to top reasons, we're looking at financial challenges, motivation, or life challenges, mental health challenges, academic performance, school life, or social issues, and also experience a traumatic event also stand in the way as either primary or contributing factors for more than 1 in 10 non-completers, but the story is very consistent when it comes to our top factors. So this is why non-completers left school, but the big question is, are they planning on coming back? In our study, nearly 3 in 10 non-completers told us they have definite plans to go back to school with the next year. And that's terrific. That's great news. Providing additional financial resources is by way far the top consideration that would have helped non-completers stay in school. And so, with this proportion of them returning, it's possible that they decide to make some changes in where and how they would attend college again, and potentially what they would major in as well. In conclusion, I really, and I won't read this to you, but I think it's important to look, and I've highlighted what I think is the three most important pieces here. Financial challenges, we need to be proactive. We need to help them plan. We need to, make sure they fill out the FAFSA, make sure they look for all the scholarships they can, make sure they have explored all the resources, turned over every opportunity that might help them financially pay for school. And then they, identify career paths, because so students don't get lost in their, the thought process and overwhelmed of trying to find a career path for them. And many students will change their mind, which is fine, but get them help to, narrowing down that to identify that career path. And finally, empathy. Empathy to help ease students' stressors. I mean, going to college is very stressful, and it starts from the very beginning. How am I going to pay for school? What college am I going to go to? Am I going to get accepted? Am I going to get rejected? So having a lot of empathy definitely goes a long, long way. Oops, my mouse is very, very quick to move. So really, I am done with the formal part of the presentation. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to see if there are any questions that I can answer this morning.
It'll probably be easiest if someone throws their question in the chat. Alternatively, let me know and we'll be able to unmute you if you want to have a more extended question.
And I know this presentation, we don't usually get a lot of questions with this one because it's a lot of facts. It's a lot of percentages. So we typically don't get a lot of questions here, but I'm happy to address any questions that people have.
Jenny, I don't know if you can see the chat, but Brian Howard asked, as a preventive measure, at what grade level should we start having conversations with at-risk students?
At-risk students, the conversation grade level, as far as like before they get to the college grade level, I mean, really anytime in the junior high, to start proactively working with these type of students, to get that, have them get the mindset about going to college that they can make it happen. Because so many of those at-risk students, we need to get to them earlier. So I would say anytime in the junior high range.
Give it another few seconds as mastering my teacher waiting time.
The at-risk population, they're very, very important to be able to get to and work with because they don't have the knowledge or the confidence because their parents, a lot of them are first generation. Many of them are from low income families. So they don't have the resources at home to help them prepare for college. So that's how we can help. Even Sallie Mae included can help in the discussions. And I know we've developed many tools and resources for students in the last several years to help these students get on track to be able to go to school.
Well, with that, thank you so much, Jenny, for your wisdom, your insights. I know I was taking notes and have a few thoughts for our work at MCAN as well. Um, I'm going to do a little wrap-up presentation just to let you know about, remind about some SketchUp procedures as well as some upcoming MCAN events. And definitely, since we have a little extra time, I will stick around if there are any questions folks want to ask after the group and the recording. But otherwise, I'm going to get that screen shared again. Doo-doo. Great. And feel free for anyone to chime in if I did not share that right. But just as a reminder on sketch credits, if you did not request a sketch credit when you registered, please email that sketch at micollegeaccess.org email address, and please include your name, the name of the webinar, and your PIC number. It looks like that name of the webinar might have been a hold off from a previous one. So, just as a reminder, the name is How America Completes College. Again, that's only if you did not sign up for a credit or identify needing a credit when you signed up. And for anyone that is watching this on the webinar or on a recording, congratulations and thank you for staying with us. In order to get a Scratch credit from the webinar, you will need the password, which is complete. Um, and that quiz should be pretty quick and easy to do after. So feel free to share with any of your friends. This will be posted on the MCAN professional development page. If you just Google MCAN for professional development, should get you to the right place. And if not, feel free to email that sketch email address and we'll be sure to get you help. Lots of different ways to get in contact with MCAN. Now, want to just make you aware that this is not a one and done style event. This is part of our entire Sallie Mae series. And we are excited to have Jenny back with us two more times in the series. Our next one on February 11th, How America Pays for College. Um, it's going to showcase research about funding sources for students and families that are utilized for paying for college, as well as taking a look at trends affecting families and more. And then on March 4th, we'll be hearing from a panel of school districts with our not higher education, high school innovation team, as they're focused on Zello's educator tools, and they'll be diving deeper into implementation strategies there. And I will post that link in the chat for anyone who is interested in one of these videos, or not videos, but webinars. Another important event, and we would love to have everyone that is interested in joining, but we would, MCAN, along with several other organizations, some of which you might be a part of, will be hosting College Attainment Advocacy Day on March 5th. And this is going to happen in Lansing, Michigan, and this is where you're going to have a chance to have meaningful dialogue with your state senator or representative about post-secondary access and attainment. NCAN schedules all of those constituent meetings for you. We also provide talking points, materials, data that are going to help guide those conversations. So we're not just going to throw you in a room and say, defend education or advocate for it. We're going to make sure that you're feeling prepared, and this can be from someone in your area that hopefully understands what's happening at your school, and you'll be there to help support that narrative. Important to note too, just making sure that you are either attending as a private citizen or if you are part of an institution or have some bureaucracy or lobbyist type what would you call it, impairments on there. I'm just making sure that it is all good with your organization, or again, taking a day off and joining us as a private citizen. But I just threw in that registration link. There is no cost to attend this event. You just need to make sure that you register, as we do plan out all those meetings in advance. Also, just give a plug if you are not already subscribed to it. We would love to have you on MCAN's newsletter. This will provide you critical information on webinars like the one we were just a part of, as well as important news, updates on legislative priorities and happenings. Uh, it is really one of the most valuable email lists you can be a part of in the college access space. So we would love to have you be a part of that. A follow-up, thinking about the future, a follow-up email will be sent out after today's session with the slides, the recording, as well as any of the reminders and information that we shared. And if you do have any questions, feel free to let Jenny or I know about the content. We're happy to keep this conversation going either through the Sallie Mae lens or here at MCAN. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully, you're taking away something useful back to your schools, institutions, and community. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Otherwise, I will end the recording if anyone wants to stick around and ask question off. I was going to say screen, but off the recording.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.